BRICS started as a financial thesis, a brainchild of chief economist of Goldman Sachs, and then it developed into a more intergovernmental organization, which has gained a lot of geopolitical standing and is also becoming as a financial force to be reckoned with the establishment of the new development bank. Do you actually think that it can actually pose a challenge to Western financial dominance as well as geopolitical dominance?
BRICS has not come out and said that, look, we are a political, geostrategic military alliance.
Right.
No, that's in some ways, that's not the Chinese way of doing things either, right? I mean, it's not like they want to establish the model. Now, that what they did in China was miraculous, lifting 850 million people out of poverty. But they always insist is that we need to, all cooperation is what they call win-win cooperation. And that does not necessarily mean it's like a Chinese model imposed here or there, but it's very different.
There's a lot of conversation these days about multipolarity of the world. Do you think that we're getting there? Is BRICS the answer to that?
The writing is on the wall. American decline has been there for quite a while now. It's just quite astonishing and staggering the way we are seeing, these defeats happen, and just their kind of inability to be in control of any area of the world. And first and foremost, it's the Middle East, where the U.S. has just completely lost control.
Assalamu alaikum, this is Amina. I'm here with a new episode of Naya Daur. In this constantly evolving and emerging geopolitical facade of the world, BRICS is emerging as a force to be reckoned with. It is being called as a challenger to G7. It is also being touted as a counterbalancing force to the US-led domination of geopolitical situation. BRICS, which is an acronym, stands for an intragovernmental organization, which encompasses Brazil, Russia, India, China, and then later on joined by South Africa. Before I delve into this entity a little bit more, I'd like to introduce my guest for today. It's Professor Junaid Ahmad, who teaches law, religion, global politics, and is also the director for the study of Islam and decoloniality. Assalamu alaikum, Professor. Thank you for joining me.
Assalamu alaikum, Amna. As always, it's a pleasure to be with you.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. I know you've been very busy, so thank you for taking time out to talk to us.
Of course.
All right. So like I was saying, the BRICS started as a financial thesis, a brainchild of chief economist of Goldman Sachs, and then it developed into a more intergovernmental organization, which has gained a lot of geopolitical standing and is also becoming as a financial force to be reckoned with the establishment of the new development bank. So just to start off with, do you actually think that it can actually pose a challenge to Western financial dominance as well as geopolitical dominance?
Well, that's the aspiration of the countries of the BRICS. Like you said, the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. Now, if you just look at those countries, particularly India and China, in terms of the population of the globe, they're between around 1/3 of the population, just these. And of course, now BRICS has expanded. Their last very important meeting took place in Johannesburg early this year. All of these leaders came, of these 5 countries, except for Vladimir Putin, who was charged by the International Criminal Court for, the actual thing he was charged for was removing children out of a war zone area. And so immediately the International Criminal Court, which is more appropriately called the International Colonial Court, because it only tries the, people, different dictators in Africa and so on. It will dare not try Israel, Netanyahu, or American generals and presidents for their war crimes in Afghanistan and Iraq. So it has lost much of its credibility to do that. So Putin didn't go. His Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, considered one of the best in the world, he went there, and this was what was so unique and important about this meeting was the additional 6 members that were allowed to join BRICS. yeah, I mean, Iran, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Ethiopia, and Argentina.
Argentina. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So, but we'll see where Argentina goes, whether it wants to stay in or not. It just got a
Yeah.
very right-wing government. But that was the idea. And again, as you correctly say this has been a type of economic integration. Sometimes they call it kind of Eurasian integration, Asia into Europe, with all of these important stops along the way, from Central Asia, Turkey, Iran, so on and so forth. So this project has been going on now for a while. First, One Belt, One Road. Now it's BRI by the Chinese, the
Yeah.
Belt and Road Initiative. And so many countries, putting aside the BRICS, so many countries wanted to just join the BRI, get on board, and the BRI entails massive investment in infrastructure, roads, trade, intercultural exchange, and so on. So that's kind of like the origins of BRICS. BRICS has not come out and said that, look, we are a political, geostrategic, military alliance.
Right.
No, that's in some ways, that's not the Chinese way of doing things either, right? I mean, it's not like they want to establish the model. Now, that what they did in China was miraculous, lifting 850 million people out of poverty. But they always insist is that we need to, all cooperation is what they call win-win cooperation. And that does not necessarily mean it's like a Chinese model imposed here or there, but it's very different from the Western model, in which it's kind of is a zero-sum game. That if you're winning, someone else is losing. And so, in addition to the massive requirements that IMF, World Bank loans require when giving out loans, there's no such thing in China. In fact, it's waived off literally billions of dollars of debt now to many African countries, Latin American countries, and some Asian countries as well.
Rightly said. So the other thing, when you look at this entity as a whole, even if you disregard the 6 other countries that have recently become members, it encompasses about 43-44% of the world population. It's about 33% of the world GDP. So there's a lot of conversation these days about multipolarity of the world. Do you think that we're getting there? Is BRICS the answer to that?
Yes, you're absolutely right that there's lots of discussion on this issue, especially by those who actually do want to see a more equitable global order in which all member nation countries, can have kind of an equal say on how to deal with many of the global cascading crises, whether it's the environmental crisis or economic crisis, massive economic inequality that we've never seen before. So all of these issues are kind of the ones being pushed by what used to be called the non-aligned movement, or the G77 in the UN. And you see in some ways, the resurgence of that spirit of the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. That spirit was of an anti-colonial nature. And the point is made is that many people who talk about the post-colonial state, one of the problems with that is that most countries do not feel like they're actually gotten rid of colonialism. Yes, they may have a different flag now than they did, and so on, but the fundamental systemic and structural predicament that these countries find themselves is no less than a form of neocolonialism, right? They are becoming indebted, they're exploited for the cheap labor, and so on and so forth. So it's you see the continuation of that type of a pattern, which is why, as you mentioned, one of the centers that I direct, Islam and the study for Center for the Study of Islam and Decoloniality. So we talk more in the sense of decolonizing, and what we feel is that it was an incomplete decolonization for many of these countries, and that the task for us is to deepen that decolonization process, which is part of this process of multipolarity growing throughout the world, which you see regional blocks. So regionalism is one way of kind of confronting the unipolar United States. But the writing is on the wall, coming back to the writing is on the wall. American decline has been there for quite a while now. It's just quite astonishing and staggering the way we are seeing, these defeats happen, and just their kind of inability to be in control of any area of the world. And first and foremost, it's the Middle East, where the U.S. has just completely lost control.
All right, just using that as a segue for my next question. Like, we've been talking about how BRICS has been emerging as a challenging entity to the Western influence. Very recently, BRICS appeared to be the only intergovernmental organization which has actually sanctioned Israel for their wars of crime, of their treatment of the Palestine-Gaza situation. They have not only levied sanctions in terms of calling their ambassadors back from Israel, but they've also tried to levy financial sanctions in whatever aspect they could do that. They have tried to cut off the trade ties, the multilateral trade, unilateral or multilateral trade ties that they were engaged in. They've also, although they're not a military entity, but they've also vowed to end any military transactions with Israel. So which seems to be opposing the dominant world order, where it's all support for Israel.
Yeah, there's no question about it that these recent flare-up in Gaza with Israel running amok with its genocidal rampage has heightened the contradictions in global order, in the sense that I don't think there's been anything, at least in my lifetime, that's been so visible in terms of Israeli atrocities, war crimes, crimes against humanity, targeting of civilian infrastructure, hospitals, and so on, that for the United States to be the only power to basically supply Israel with whatever it wants, needs, nonstop since October 7th, since October 8th. What this has done is, and it's for everyone to see, it's positioned the great superpower that claims to be on the side of democracy, freedom, and human rights as the main culprit in this genocidal campaign against the Palestinians. And so, when we're coming back to these forces that are gravitating towards more multipolarity, here is a specific incident in which it's crystal clear that the vast majority of the world, and even some of the other big players, certainly Russia and China, but even some European countries as well, because of their populations. I'm not saying their governments are so great, but the popular uprisings and demonstrations have been fantastic in England and the United States and other European capitals, of course, other countries in East Asia and certainly in Latin America, as you were mentioning. I mean, the first ones to withdraw their ambassadors from Tel Aviv, as well as just ending diplomatic relations, condemning what Israel is doing, and calling for an immediate ceasefire. They've come at the beginning just from the Latin American countries. So I think that what this has shown is that the emperor has no clothes. The United States is so exposed right now of being to put it mildly, on the wrong side of history, that I think that this is accelerating the trend towards more multipolarity for countries, smaller countries, not looking anymore to the IMF and World Bank, but looking more to China and Russia. You see this in Africa, these coups against trying to get Africa out, as a neo-colonial power. and they've been successful. And you've seen some of them waving Russian flags and this type of thing. So these are clear signs that the world has changed. So when you ask, when we get there, quite frankly, we are there. We are there where the United States 20, 30 years ago, 40, 50, it would do whatever it wanted to do anywhere in the country, overthrow Latin American. I mean, it still tries to, but clearly it does not have that force or power to do that today. So the point is that the Gaza uprising on October 7th really represented what, going back to Frantz Fanon, within the zone of non-being, and there's no greater zone of non-being than the Gaza Strip, most densely populated population, routinely bombed, and one Israeli bombing campaign after the next. So there's no greater and heroic example than these highly oppressed people, the people of Gaza, fighting back against. And I think that's the psychology of this, that the collective West fears so much, that these formerly colonized people who we continue to have a neo-colonial relationship with, that they will one day fight back. And that is the image of the Palestinian fighters right now, trying to get back their land and assert themselves as a people that the international community has to address, which is, of course, what Trump and Biden as well were saying. Oh, forget about the Palestinians. Don't even mention the word. Let's just have state-to-state normalization. The Saudis. That project is gone. Yeah. Palestine is once again front and center, and I think it is intricately tied to the process of global multipolarity.
Yeah, and just a case in that point is that despite the fact that this entity, BRICS, is emerging as a challenger to the norm, the Western dominance, primarily led by US, but the world, it seems, is not ostracizing them. In fact, it's embracing it. In fact, just now they have 40 countries that have applied for membership, and their fate will be decided in the next meeting in 2024. So it seems like that they're garnering more and more support. The world is trying to get behind them. And with the addition of these oil giants as new members to BRICS, it seems like that it's gaining more momentum, which would certainly be a force to be reckoned with in future.
Yes, and I mean, you mentioned these petrol stations, these countries in the Gulf. What is also going on here, and this is obviously relevant to our topic of multipolarity, is that these countries, the Saudis, the Emiratis, Bahrain, and others, are seeing what we are seeing, and that is American decline. The influence of the United States in these places has declined significantly. And these countries are slightly fearful of if the United States one day doesn't like some ruler of some country, they will try to undermine them, and so on and so forth. So these countries have cleverly thought that it's best to not put all your eggs in one basket. Yeah. For the United States. So they have, especially the expansion of kind of deals and trade with China. That's as we remember now, something that we would never have imagined, at least I would never have imagined, considering the level of animosity that was there for now decades. But the rapprochement, the reconciliation between Iran and Saudi Arabia was huge news. And actually, even before China, what people don't know is that actually Russia had initiated that. So, you have these two models. On the one hand, you have Eurasian integration, the Belt and Road Initiative, and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, etc., all cooperative. And on the other hand, you have the United States and Israel. Israel is, kind of pushing these things sometimes. Oh, it's all about war. It's all about Iran. It's all about we need to bomb Syria. We need to do this. So you have these two poles, and it's not shocking why much of the world would much more prefer a peaceful process, what the
Yeah.
Chinese call a win-win situation, in which their countries can develop in meaningful ways that they have been hindered heretofore by institutions like the World Bank and the IMF.
Definitely. It's definitely providing the world, which is kind of tired of, dominance led by these Western forces, an alternative option. So I would like to tie this discussion with bringing it a little more local, or bringing it a little more close to the heart, bringing it to Pakistan, where we know that Pakistan has also applied for the membership of BRICS, and its application will be considered in the upcoming meeting in 2024. Realistically speaking, do you think that Pakistan, with where its economy is in dire straits, the inflation rate is at record 31% high, does it really stand a chance of being accepted to this organization, which is basically a conglomerate of fast emerging economies?
Yeah, so this is an interesting question. It's a difficult question. As I've mentioned, and as we know, many countries have applied to join BRICS. So there's a long list there.
Yeah.
And one thing to point out is we also should be careful and perhaps not romanticize this process as being just some smooth kind of smooth gravy train of getting one country after the next on board. The idea within BRICS is that you do not interfere in the internal political matters of the countries. I'm not sure how long that can last, in the sense that I think Pakistan is a good example. Of course, it's not a member yet, but if a BRICS member country were to go into some type of chaotic situation, civil war, then what? What do you do? So they haven't addressed these types of issues, which I'm just emphasizing that the kind of the economic integration that they want to achieve, that's fine. But of course, we know that the social and political health of a country is necessary for all of this. We know in Pakistan, lots of great things that Chinese have done. Of course, Chinese workers have been targeted as well at the same time. So there's the issue of political stability in a country. Coming to Pakistan, I mean, before I would have been much more inclined to say that, well, the Indians will never allow it.
They've already vetoed.
Right, exactly, right. Yeah. So the Indians will never allow it. Now, but what I suspect is the way things are going in Pakistan, and I hope there's a U-turn in Pakistan. This doesn't go this way, because it's a disaster for Pakistan. But the way things are going in Pakistan is that one day New Delhi may wake up and find a fully compliant Islamabad that won't bother India at all. In fact, will try its best to dance to the New Delhi's tune. So if that happens, then maybe New Delhi can make an exception and allow Pakistan entry, because for all practical purposes, for now, almost 2 years, or at least a year and a half, it's been well understood that part of the package of getting rid of former Prime Minister Imran Khan are forces that want a much cozier relationship to India, a subservient relationship with India. That's fine. I mean, the huge military of Pakistan at this stage is used for nothing more than basically repressing its own population. That's effectively the function of the Pakistan, which is tragic. We're the fifth largest country in the world, and all of this. So it's a real tragedy of a country that it's self-committed kind of suicide by its own political machinations and so on. So I mean, I think if it can assuage and pacify the fears of New Delhi, yeah, There could be a moment in which they say, but again, coming back to the initial point you made, that's also an important one. What is the socioeconomic situation of a country? Now, of course, we do have other BRICS members, say Ethiopia, that have come in, or Egypt, right? Yeah, Egypt is, yeah.
Egypt,
I mean, yeah. So there's other countries that have dire economic straits as well. Maybe Pakistan has much more than them, but I think that the main thing, beyond even that, is political stability. Because I think they could get the money from either the New Development Bank, from the Chinese, Saudis, or whatever. But I think there's a real reluctance now until they see the political struggle in Pakistan resolved. And up until now, it's still anyone's guess. Where's it going to go?
So hopefully, maybe, the future elections will provide some political stability, and we may be in a better position when it comes to the final decision made about memberships. Although, the BRICS is still also formulating a process of expanding the membership. They don't have any they haven't laid down any requirements per se as of yet as to what the member countries will become future members, certain criteria to meet or not. But obviously, like you mentioned, political stability and the socioeconomic health of a country are obviously going to be very important factors when they consider granting memberships to or expanding membership. And obviously, with so many countries applying for this, to be members, BRICS can definitely be selective. They just don't have to go around offering memberships when there's so many countries in line, and they're obviously going to look at what fits within their agenda, what follows their goals and requirements that they would like other countries to meet. So obviously, it would be, even if you disbar for a second India's dislike or India's veto towards Pakistan participation, Pakistan still has to come up, or I'm sure will have to meet a certain standard before other countries would support its application. And like you mentioned, China has some vested interest in Pakistan, and by including Pakistan in BRICS, it may make those projects or those objectives a little more streamlined. But then again, it's not China alone that would be the deciding factor.
Yeah, I think it's important to mention here that, look, even within the internal of the five first BRICS members, the big dangerous elephant in the room is, of course, India. India is a close ally of the United States, close ally of Israel, is part of various American groupings which function to basically contain and encircle China. So this is the irony of it. I mean, so it's in BRICS, but it's also part of the Quad, and other associations with the United States. That's a problem. Now, and Pakistan will face a similar issue. I think that at this point, my own reading is that the Chinese are also very wary of Pakistan. Yeah, it's of course, things are going on. CPEC is going on. All of these things, but the most recent developments over the past 2 years have quite irritated Beijing, in the sense that it's become quite obvious how close the Pakistani military high command, and especially the chief of army staff, how close they have become to Washington. That's become crystal clear. And so then the Chinese think, well, can we trust these people 100% if, the country that is trying to kind of encircle us and wage war on us, our good friend Pakistan, is in bed with them. So there are all these kind of dynamics at play. So, I mean, I don't think we should automatically assume that even China will allow Pakistan. But, I could be wrong, but I just wanted to make these points that, like, even internally within BRICS, there are these tensions.
Yeah, definitely. And those are all good points to make. And, like you said, it's not going to be an easy path, if it is a path at all for Pakistan. It's going to face a lot of challenges. Even if it becomes a member, let's say by some great stroke of luck, it is probably going to be the weakest member and won't be bringing a whole lot to the table. So it's just a process that remains to be seen, and see how it evolves.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Professor, for your thoughts on BRICS and how situation may evolve for Pakistan. Always happy to have you, and thank you so much.
Always happy to be on. Thank you so much.